I am Dr. Anna Hale, urologist with over 15 years helping men recover natural vitality and quiet confidence without pills or invasive procedures. And if you are a man over 60 listening right now, this is for you. So pay attention, because what I will show you can change your mornings. You are not broken, and this is not punishment for aging. It is a retraining of pathways that have gone quiet and can be reactivated. Think of your body like a house where the lights are still wired, but the switch has not been touched in years. Today, I will teach 2 precise points to press and 2 simple breathing and pressure patterns that reopen circulation, restore sensitivity, and bring back a reliable morning pulse of energy in ways many doctors do not explain. Write in the comments now the city or country you are watching from so we can build a global community of men reclaiming strength and dignity. And stay with me, because in the next minutes, you will learn where to place gentle pressure, how to breathe to boost nitric oxide naturally, and what subtle signals to look for when your body begins to respond. This content is educational and not a replacement for medical advice. If you have sharp pain or sudden changes, seek your clinician. But for most men, these techniques are a safe, accessible starting point. Now, a quick, clear explanation of why this happens and why it is not your fault. The problem is usually a combination of slowed circulation and reduced nerve responsiveness, rather than irreversible damage. Over decades, sitting more, breathing more shallowly, and chronic low-level stress cause the femoral and pudendal nerve pathways to become less responsive, and local blood flow to the pelvic and inner thigh area to thin. Imagine a river that still has water but is clogged by leaves and silt. The water remains, but the flow is disrupted. Modern habits of long drives, desk work, and shallow chest breathing worsen this by reducing nitric oxide release, which normally dilates vessels and helps sensitivity. You are not to blame. You were living in an environment that teaches your body to conserve rather than to flow, and small, targeted actions can clear the channel and restore responsiveness without medication. Now, a few rapid examples to show you this is plausible and real. I want to tell you about Harold and Thomas because their cases are short, but each one proves a pattern. Harold is 73 and called me after months of avoiding intimacy. He said, quote, "I thought this was over for me and that I had to accept it," end quote. We worked together on the first point, and within a week, Harold reported waking with a warm pulse and a return of morning firmness that surprised him. Thomas is 65 and a retired teacher who felt numbness as if a blanket was draped over the area he used to notice. He tried the second technique, and 3 days later, he sent a message. Quote, "I felt a small, bright warmth like sunlight on my thigh, and I had to tell my wife. She laughed, but I cried a little." End quote. These are small wins, and they build quickly with consistency. You will hear more from Earl and Robert later, and their voices will sound like your neighbor or your friend, which matters because recoveries are rarely dramatic overnight, but often steady and believable. Now I will locate the first point and give a step-by-step practice that you can do now with your hands on your lap or on a cushion. The anatomy in plain language is simple. The pudendal nerve and small arterial branches sit along the perineal floor and the inner edge of the pelvic ring. For practical purposes, you will target a point roughly 2 to 3 finger widths inside the crease where the inner thigh meets the groin, and a second point along the flesh of the upper inner thigh, following the line of the femoral artery. Step 1. Find a comfortable seated position with feet flat and knees slightly apart. Notice the weight of your sit bones on the chair. Step 2. Place the pads of 2 fingers at the first point. Gently apply steady pressure as if pressing a dimmer switch, not a hammer. You should feel the tissue give and a slight tick of sensation. Step 3. Combine this pressure with slow abdominal breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, letting the belly rise. Exhale for 6 counts, pulling the navel softly toward the spine. and imagine warm blood flowing like a slow river to the area. Repeat this cycle for 90 seconds, and then switch to the second point. Signs of success are subtle, warmth spreading, a gentle pulsing under your fingers, a small increase in sensitivity, and sometimes a release of tension in your lower back. Let me narrate a demonstration I had with Harold in clinic so you can hear the exchange and the sensory detail. He sits on the exam table in a worn shirt and jeans. The fluorescent light is cool on his arms. I say to Harold, quote, "Place your hand where I show you and breathe slowly. Tell me what you feel," end quote. Harold touches the point and breathes out a rough sound and replies, quote, "It feels strange, a little twinge, like a sleepy string being plucked," end quote. I answer, quote, "Good, stay with that pressure, breathe deeper, and notice any warmth or pulsing," end quote. He pauses and his face softens and says, quote, "I feel a warm thread now and a tiny pulse, like a distant drum," end quote. I reassure him, quote, "That is the circulation waking up. Keep the pressure gentle and add 2 more abdominal breaths," end quote. He does, and then smiles and says, "It is like someone turned on a lamp in a dark room." Sensory cues in the room include the soft hiss of the clinic fan, the faint antiseptic smell, the texture of the exam paper under his thigh, and the warmth building under his fingertips. This conversation had 5 exchanges, and each line helped him anchor the sensation, which is important because learning happens through feedback and small confirmations. Now, notice how simple the immediate actions are and how they change mindset in minutes. When men see a tangible sign like pulse or warmth, their anxiety drops and confidence rises, which itself boosts blood flow. You are not performing magic, you are giving the nervous system permission to use pathways it already has. In clinic, I say repeatedly, quote, "You are not broken, you are disconnected," end quote. And that reassurance alone reduces cortisol, which helps circulation. A short patient vignette shows this effect. Thomas, after his first practice, texted, quote, "I felt hopeful for the first time in months," end quote. And 2 weeks later, he reported more consistent mornings, which is the psychological momentum you want to cultivate. Now, the second point targets the upper inner thigh and ties into the femoral line to enhance circulation up into the pelvic basin. The femoral pathway carries a crucial portion of blood that irrigates the groin and lower pelvis, and by applying pressure along a specific tract, you can nudge blood flow upward. Practical steps are as follows. Find a reclined seat or a bed with knees bent so the leg muscles relax. Place the heel of your hand gently on the upper inner thigh, midway between the groin and the knee. Apply moderate, steady pressure at first for 10 to 15 seconds. Then perform 2 slow abdominal breaths and move the hand slowly 3 centimeters toward the midline, pausing and repeating. Sensory signals to watch for include a sensation of heat spreading like warm oil, a subtle pulsing that matches your heartbeat, and a slight release of tightness in the hip flexor. I will share Earl, quote, "the long-haul driver," end quote, whose daily routine transformed with this exact sequence. Earl is 60 and spent decades on the road with long stretches of sitting. He told me, quote, "My legs were like lead and intimacy felt like a memory," end quote. His wife Maria noticed small changes before he did and texted me, quote, "He is smiling in the morning and he hums while he makes coffee," end quote. That social proof matters because families notice the small shifts before men admit them. In an exchange in my office, Earl said, quote, "I am skeptical, doctor, but I will try anything that does not involve pills," end quote. And I replied, quote, "Keep it gentle and listen for warmth and pulse," end quote. And after 3 days he called back, breathing heavier on the phone, and said, quote, "I had a warmth creep up my thigh while sitting at the table, and I felt my face flush," end quote. Laughed out loud, end quote. This conversation had 4 exchanges, and each included sensory markers of success, like the sound of his laugh, the smell of his coffee that morning, and the texture of his shirt as he sat straighter. Now, we will turn these steps into a simple daily routine you can maintain in 5 to 10 minutes every morning and evening. Start with hydration. Drink 2 glasses of water within 30 minutes of waking to restore plasma volume and support microcirculation. Then perform 3 cycles of the first point practice, 90 seconds each, with abdominal breathing and light pressure, followed by 2 cycles of the second point practice, each 90 seconds. Finish with a 1-minute gentle pelvic floor engagement, contracting lightly and releasing slowly, like drawing up a small elevator in the pelvic floor. Do this twice with awareness and soft breathing. Total time is about 5 to 10 minutes and should be practiced daily for at least 7 days to notice an initial shift. Frequency and tempo matter. Be slow and consistent, and keep a simple log noting warmth, pulse, or change in morning sensation. This community moment is where I ask you to participate. If you have felt disconnected despite trying other approaches, and you are watching now, I understand that frustration, and it is common. Please write in the comments the place you are joining from, and in one word describe how you feel in the morning. For example, cold, apathy, no strength, hopeful. Your single word helps other men see they are not alone and helps me tailor future videos to the most common complaints. Thank you for sharing. Now let's look under the hood a little to explain the physiology in accessible terms. Scientific institutions like Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and the National Institutes of Health describe how nitric oxide and endothelial function influence blood flow and sensitivity. What I teach is not a mystery. It uses simple mechanical pressure to stimulate local blood vessels and slow, deep breathing to increase parasympathetic tone, which raises nitric oxide production and improves vasodilation. Studies on breathing and pelvic floor function show links between diaphragmatic respiration and improved pelvic blood flow and nerve responsiveness. On the psychological side, reduced performance anxiety and increased agency lower sympathetic firing, which allows natural erectile responses to reappear. To ground this with a deeper patient backstory, meet Robert and hear his long narrative, which shows how physical and emotional history intertwine. I will tell this in 3 compact thematic segments to connect the past to the present. In his youth, Robert was athletic, a carpenter who rose with the dawn and relied on strong legs and a steady back. He remembers long days sweating sawdust, tasting metal oils, and laughing with coworkers about life and power, which built an implicit trust in his body that lasted decades. Those memories are tactile and smell heavy, like cedar and warm rope. In middle age, Robert slowed his pace. Jobs got more desk-based, and his sleep was shorter, his breath shallow, and he began noticing mornings that were less reliable. He told me, quote, "I felt ashamed to tell my friend John that I was avoiding intimacy. I thought it was weakness," end quote, which created stress and a pattern of retreat into less movement and more isolation. That shame narrowed his chest and reduced the ease of diaphragmatic breathing. In the last 5 years, Robert had 3 minor surgeries and a close friend passed away, which compounded tension and encouraged him to sit more. When he came to me, he had low confidence and spoke quietly about lost identity. We worked together on the 2 points and the breathing routine, and his recovery was steady. After 3 months, he texted, quote, "I do not feel young, but I feel like myself again," end quote. His experience illustrates how history shapes present physiology and how targeted practice can restore continuity. Now, I will name a group of people who appear in my work and in these stories and how they react, so you can imagine real social context. Harold reports warmth and calls his neighbor George to share the odd victory. Thomas sits on a porch with his wife Ellen and they have tea and talk differently. Earl, the long-haul driver, sends a photo of his boots and a sunset to his daughter Nina and writes, quote, "I woke with feeling," end quote. Robert reconnects with his friend John, who notices his steadier voice. Dr. Lisa, a pelvic floor physiotherapist, consults on techniques for a complicated case and offers modifications. Nurse Maria from my clinic reminds patients to hydrate and to keep logs. Miguel, a fitness coach in a support group, organizes gentle walks. Each of these named people plays a role in reinforcement and accountability, and they all react with curiosity, relief, surprise, or quiet joy, which is important because recovery is social as well as physiological. Now I will be candid about moments of tension you may face and how to move through them. There are 3 specific tension moments most men encounter. The first is the initial doubt when you try something new and you feel nothing in the first session. You might think this will not work and feel a tightening of the chest and a mental retreat. In that moment, slow your breathing, double your inhale, and lengthen your exhale. And remind yourself that the nervous system often requires repeated, gentle input before showing change. The second tension moment is a relapse, a week or 2 in when you feel a step backward, perhaps after stress, poor sleep, or travel, and your immediate response might be frustration or shame. Do the sequence with compassion for yourself and reach out to a friend in the community or write 1 word in the comments describing the setback to normalize it. The third tension moment is impatience, wanting rapid dramatic returns, which can lead to overpressure, or breath holding, both of which blunt progress. In that case, step back, reduce pressure by 30% and elongate the exhale. And remember the metaphor of a river, not a forced torrent. Each of these tense moments requires recognized steps to diffuse. They involve breathing adjustment, behavioral framing, and small social actions like texting a friend or posting a brief comment, which together restore momentum. Now for a practical challenge, the 7-day reset. I invite you to commit to 5 to 10 minutes each morning for 7 consecutive days. Follow the routine of hydration, 3 cycles, first point, 2 cycles, second point, and 2 gentle pelvic floor lifts. Keep a short log, note warmth, pulse, and any change in morning sensation, and comment on day 7 with 1 sentence about your experience. If you do this, you will likely notice at least a subtle warm pulse reduction in anxiety and a small improvement in confidence, which then encourages more consistent practice and social sharing. Now, the epilogue, where we look at progress over time and imagine practical milestones. 1 month in, you should expect subtle but consistent signs. Drinkable changes, like waking with a small warmth in the groin, an increase in the morning pulse, and clearer confidence in conversation with your partner. You may notice improved posture and slightly deeper spontaneous breaths. Celebrate these small shifts and keep the log because small data builds belief. 3 months in, with regular practice, the changes compound. The circulatory improvements become more reliable. Sensitivity increases in daily life, not just in the morning, and emotional re-engagement with partners is more consistent. Many men report fewer moments of avoidance and greater willingness to initiate intimacy, which strengthens relationships and self-image. At this stage, consider integrating a pelvic floor physiotherapist like Dr. Lisa or aerobic walking with Miguel to amplify gains. 6 months in, this is where the transformation feels durable. Your nervous system has new pathways of expectation and response. You will likely have replaced avoidance with a compact routine that takes 5 to 10 minutes and has real impact on quality of life. Partners notice a steadier voice, warmer mornings, and reclaimed confidence, which often leads to renewed social engagement and physical activity. Maintain the practices as maintenance and be attentive to stressors and travel, which can cause temporary dips but are manageable with the tools you now have. To close, do this recap. You are not broken. You are reconnecting to pathways that can be reawakened with gentle pressure, slow abdominal breathing, and consistent practice. Take the 7-day challenge and post your single word and location in the comments so others see they are not alone. If this video helped you, subscribe to join a community that will support weekly practical steps and real patient stories. This information is educational, and if you experience sharp pain or sudden changes, seek medical evaluation. Thank you for trusting this process, and remember the last image I want you to hold is simple. Your body is like a house, and today you touched the switch. The light begins to come on, and you can choose to keep pressing it until the room is warm again.